Hello and welcome back to Sea Red UK, where quite simply Chicago Bulls sing. This podcast is part of the Fans First Sports Network, so wherever you're listening, rate, review, subscribe, helps us out and ensures you don't miss another episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the bell, give us a thumbs up, and leave some comments down below. I'm Matt, and as usual, joined by Neil. How are we doing, Neil?
I'm okay. I've had a bit of a rough week at work. I know you haven't had the best week either, so I'm actually looking forward to getting some therapy in by talking Bulls.
Yeah, and obviously we've got a pointless match loss to talk about, which doesn't help our therapy, which is needed for both of us. But
Yeah, well, it's something.
yeah, before we get into it, obviously there is a little bit of latest news which you're gonna
Yeah,
let us
I
know.
mean it's fairly thin on the ground at the minute. I mean, there's been the little thing that's just come out there about Coby talking about DeMar maybe being a quarterback and the way he's able to throw the ball full court with his opposite hand and all that sort of thing. You know, just usual light-hearted rubbish that comes out this kind of time of year. Um, but one of the things that did come out was in the NBA.com annual GM survey, our very own AC, Alex Caruso, got voted third best perimeter defender in a tie with Marcus Smart. So, I mean, it's nice to see us going at the upper end of the scale on the GM survey. We don't tend to normally dip into that very often.
Yeah, and it's a pretty obvious one, really, isn't it? As well.
Yeah,
I say I am wearing my Caruso t-shirt in honour.
very
Not that I
good.
knew about it until you just mentioned it, but either way. But yeah, as well, your little thing under your name says off-season survivor.
Yeah,
Mine says Bulls are back, and that is because we've got a game to talk about.
absolutely.
Obviously, 6 p.m. for us on Sunday was the start of pre-season,
Hmm.
and before we get into it, we are aware it's pre-season. We know
Yes,
exactly what pre-season is. You know, you can't take too much out of it. You can't take not enough out of it either, to be fair. And this game, obviously, Bucks went with, well, rested their big three. Obviously, Giannis, Dame, Chris Middleton.
hmm,
And that's the thing that seems to be going around is we couldn't even beat Bucks bench. But at the same time, when our big three are only playing, what was it, 17 minutes?
yeah. They all play 17 minutes, all three of them.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's pre-season.
Mhm.
And look, it's pre-season's a chance for us to get going again in it as well.
Absolutely.
With these game reviews, the graphics, the posts on Twitter, all that sort of stuff. So it's a bit of a ramp up for everybody. And onto the game itself. Obviously, finished 105-102 in favour of Milwaukee.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter.
No, no, none of the scores
Obviously,
matter in pre-season.
no. Obviously, it's nice to get a win, especially against Bucks. But it's not the end of the world that we lost it, and we
No,
didn't lose to their bench because this was a game of two halves as well, really, wasn't it?
very much.
We had obviously our starters was out there. Obviously, Coby, P. Will added to that starting unit. First quarter, it was exactly what we wanted to see, wasn't it? And it was
Yeah,
exactly as expected. A lot of missed shots, but the shots were going up. That was the main thing. The offense was fast. I think did
yeah,
we have something like 19 fast break points in that first
that's
quarter,
right.
something like that.
Yeah,
It looked as if Zach was the man to start with. But then when we weren't getting a bucket, it was like DeMar was like, right, give me it. There we go. We started. We saw DeMar hit a three,
yep.
which we know he can do, and he was 1-of-1 in the end, wasn't he? Something like that.
Yeah, I think he only took one and hit it. Yeah,
Yeah. Second quarter, we kind of went a bit all over, didn't it? When we started making the rotations and stuff
hmm,
like that, which that's something I'm gonna talk about in a bit. And then second half, it was the fringe players won it mainly, and it was a fun game to watch in the second half, but it was pre-season. So yeah, going back to the first quarter, obviously them starting units. Obviously Coby got the starting role at the 1. P Will gets it at the 4, and they look good, especially Coby and P Will. Like I said, the ball wasn't sticking a lot, was it? It was constantly moving, and it was kind of like Showtime Bulls a little bit, wasn't it? And then the rotation started, and it sort of unravels a little bit. But yeah, before we go into any sort of individuals, what was your sort of general take?
Yeah, and I very much liked the pace at which they were playing. I liked the way they were moving the ball around. But the thing that really impressed me in the first quarter, when it was the starting 5 and the starting unit, as whether it's going to continue on as that being the starting unit, we'll have to wait and see. But the thing I liked about it was the off-ball movement as well was there.
Yeah,
And that's something that we were really sorely lacking last season. Everyone was standing around watching Damar go ISO or watching Zach do his thing, whereas that wasn't the case at the start of the game on Sunday. Everybody was moving, everything was fast paced. The ball was zipping around, the players were moving around, finding position, finding openings, or creating space, and it worked. I mean, it was proven it worked. If that's the way they're going to play, and if they can keep that up, I think that we're going to be at least more enjoyable team to watch this season.
yeah, and I mean, obviously, there's been all that talk about. Well, Billy said he wanted to speed the offense up, and that happened. We said we wanted to see more 3-point attempts. That happened. Did we finish with 35? I think
35.
it was in the end.
Yeah.
We hit something like 13 of them, didn't we? I think.
Yeah, 13 of 30.
And obviously P Will was once again the main threat from 3, wasn't he? Hitting, was it 3 or 6 he hit?
That's right, 50%.
So my issue with that is it kind of looked forced at a lot of times with the 3-point, as if to say, right, we know what you want to see, here you go. And sometimes it just, I don't know, it got a little bit too rushed, I thought. And it was like, right, there's the ball, throw it. And it's just like, well, you're not in a decent position or whatever. You're just basically trying to. It's why I hate the 3-point game, basically, because I think it just slows everything down after a certain point. And if you're not going to fight for the rebounds, which we didn't last year, you've got to hope that they go down. Otherwise, you're just basically throwing the ball away. But that's it. It was the first game. It's clear to see that Javon Carter and Torrey Craig are going to quite happily put them up. P. Will's still happy putting them up. I'm not even going to mention the big 3 because we just didn't see. They were just basically there to get the first run out, weren't they?
Yeah.
And when that second unit come in, I think that was when we had our longest field goal drought on it. It was nearly 4 minutes, something like that. And that's where my sort of issue is with Coby getting the start, is because that second unit needed him.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, as we progress through pre-season and obviously into the season, the big 3 are probably going to be staggered into it. The rotations will be slightly different and stuff like that. But it was a very defensive second unit, wasn't it? And there was just like, well, who's gonna take it to him? Because Javon Carter, I thought he had a good game, good debut, showed what he's going to be capable of. But I think his game's more suited to that big 3 or our big 3 because he doesn't need the ball in his hand to be effective. For me, Coby needs the ball in his hands to be effective. And obviously, going in with that big 3, if they're there all the time, he's not going to have the ball in his hands. And I think that's where we're going to get the streaky Coby come back if he's not got the ball in his hand. And it's not a knock on Coby at all, because obviously I love Coby, I love his game. He was the player of the game for that one in that game for me. But I think he'd be better running that second unit, probably with P. Will in it as well.
Yeah.
because P. Will's the same. He can't have the ball in his hands if it's in 3 other players' hands. So like I say, it's probably going to change. I mean, even Billy Donovan has said, don't read too much into who started.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, what did you sort of make of Coby getting the start? And
I thought Coby looked excellent. I thought he really showed the progression he's made as a player, as a point guard. He was certainly creating opportunities. He was driving the ball. He looked really good. I love the way he was attacking the basket and then dropping the ball back for somebody else to take the shot. He was, that whole thing that we were saying maybe for Vooch to do, to collapse the defense and kick the ball out. Coby did that a good few times, and I thought it looked really good. However, I do hasten to agree with what you're saying. I think that Coby, as a scorer and as an attacking point guard, and P. Will as a shooter, who's also capable of playing good defense, as is Coby, as he proved last season, may fit that second unit that little bit better, because that second unit is all about the defense and the first unit is all about the scoring. And the problem with that is when you roll 5 for 5, let's say, bring off the first 5, put on the second 5, or there or thereabouts, what you're creating is a stagnating offense in that second unit. And also in the first unit, you have a weaker defensive side. So to put the likes of Javon Carter and Torrey Craig in with the core 3, you're upping your defensive stance in that 5. And by putting Coby and P. Will into the second 5, what you're adding to the defense there is you're adding some scoring. So, I mean, I do think there's going to be a lot of work there for Billy to do, a bit of blending and a bit of mixing. I certainly don't think a rotation of 4 or 5 players at a time is going to work. Now, I know he only really done that because it's a preseason game and he was just testing the water and dipping the toes a bit. But I think when it comes to, a little bit further along into the preseason and then into the regular season, he needs to think about blending the teams as opposed to these switch outs.
Yeah, and I think obviously as we progress through pre-season, people are going to start getting more minutes. The fringe players are going to start losing minutes, and that's where we'll get a better idea of how the rotations are going to be. And like I said, I've always said it's not a knock on Coby or P. Will that I think they'll be better with that second unit. If they can put up 15 points in that second unit, and P. Will starts grabbing boards and stuff like that, which is what everybody wants to see, that's just as beneficial. Well, that's more beneficial than them standing around waiting for the ball to come to them while it's stuck in DeMar's hands or Zach's dribbling it off his foot or whatever Zach's doing. Do you know what I mean? It's just... And I haven't got an issue with Javon Carter or Torrey Craig starting either.
Nope.
Because when they was on the court, I mean, Torrey Craig's first sort of shift out there was just... It just showed... It was a bit Javonte Green, wasn't it? It was a bit of everything. But
definitely,
he's got the size there to do it all as well, which is obviously what Javonte didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of them to me, Torrey Craig's one of them players that he doesn't need the ball to be in the game, because if he hasn't got the ball, he'll work to get the ball, whether that's the defensive end or the offensive end. And that's kind of what we want from P. Will. And that's why on last week's episode with Dan Moriarty, when we gave our predictions, I said that Torrey Craig's going to be the unsung hero, because if he's not doing it himself, I think he's encouraging P. Will to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in terms of P. Will, it's just the start of things. Obviously, we know that he's tried to change his mentality, and I mean, I don't know if you've watched all the All Access from training camp.
I haven't seen the last one.
Well, he's like dancing around and stuff like that, like as if he's just scored a touchdown and stuff like that. Seeing a bit more of his personality coming out and a bit more confidence in him.
Great.
And I mean, I've just shared a video on Twitter, which was taken from Bull's TikTok, and it's when Quentin Jackson slams it down at the end, and he's just stood there and he's like, and he, really casual, and it's just like, it is typical P. Will.
Very much.
But there was a funny side to it as well, because it was like, you could tell that he wanted to run and dance and jump around like everybody else was doing. But he's like, no, I'm P. Will. I'm just gonna, But I think that's just his general personality. But you can see how he is around the rest of the team now.
Mhm.
There's a bit more confidence there, and he's trying to maybe assert himself onto the team a bit more.
Mhm.
And I think we saw that in his performance. I mean, you still want him to grab more boards, but apart from one of his threes, they were all pretty decent. There was that one where it just sort of dropped short the front of the rim, but he didn't look like he wanted to take it in the first place. It was like,
Mhm.
oh, I've got the ball. And then, you know, it, but that, he took it out at the end of the day. And I mean, there was that one where he was sort of around the side and he did that typical, well, I think it's typical P. Will thing anyway. It comes to him and he sees the defender rushing out to him and he just dribbles it, takes a step to the side, and he gets that sexy rainbow up for you,
Yeah.
And
But did you see Billy's reaction to that?
no,
Billy was not impressed.
was he not?
No,
What, at
no.
the step or?
Yeah, he was. Basically not either driving or taking the shot. Like, I mean, your best opportunity of a clean drive is when you've got a player trying to close out, right? The player's
Yeah.
closing out, running towards you. That's when you've got them off the balance, and it's easier to drive past them. And whether P. Will had driven it or just shot the ball the minute he got it, I think it would have pleased Billy a hell of a lot more than his usual little bounce, little sidestep, then shoot. But Billy was certainly
Yes.
not too happy looking.
See, I don't mind his little sidestep because it's like you say, the defender's coming and the defender's going in one direction. It's if he tries to change direction, chances are he's going to have a bit of contact and
But I
foul
just think it's
possibly.
too lackadaisical. I think, and this is a bit weird now. I'm the one that's given out about P. Will, and you're the one that's defended him. But what I'd prefer him to do is a definitive sidestep shot or step back shot, as opposed to this
Right,
little
yeah,
little
a little
dribble to the
dribble.
side. And yeah, do you know if he did a full blown sidestep pull up jumper or step back, even step back if he's close enough to the arc and step back three or something like that, I just think it would be a little bit more explosive and a little bit more beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I can't remember who the defender was that was sort of rushing out at him.
I can't either.
A better level of defender would probably have made it a lot harder for him
Yeah,
rather than flying past him as he did. But I don't know. It looked to me it was a different looking performance from P. Will.
it was.
Granted, it was against lesser opposition, which is when we know he tends to stand out. But the confidence looked like it was there. And
Mhm.
there was that time he went to the rim. Was it Rolo that he
Yeah, against
put
Robin
on a
Lopez.
tried to put on tried to put him on a poster, and typical P. Will misses the dunk. But was it
I was still
bounced off the
happy to
rim,
see
didn't
that.
it?
It was aggressive. It was what we want.
Yeah, and the thing is, I thought he was aggressive from the start as well.
Yeah.
Even with the likes of Demar, Zach, and Vooch being there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just still think that the Carolina boys are better suited to that second unit, just to spread it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, to me, there's just nothing in that second unit that's like it's worth having there, basically, from a defensive point of view.
Mm.
Because obviously we saw Caruso, typical big fat zero. Torrey Craig, like I say, I liked what he did, but it's not enough to sort of lead a unit, is it?
No.
Ayo. I mean, we haven't spoke about Ayo yet. I thought he had a good game.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
he only got 14 minutes, but he was showing the willingness to get the ball up. He was hustling on like defense, as we know from Ayo, there's that one where he set up Julian Phillips, wasn't there, where he was on the floor and he was wrestling around for it and just little flick pass out. And obviously, probably the highlight of the game, which confused a lot of people, and it confused me, the half-court heave at the end of the third. And I think it was Wayne put in the chat, didn't he, or on the live thread that we were doing on Facebook, did it count or not? And I was like, no. And then the more I looked, I was like, hang on, it did. But it's because the announcers, they confused me, because it was like, oh, they've wiped it off. And then obviously it went to the game break and they come back and they were talking about it, but in a negative sort of way. And I was like, oh, they called it off.
I think the officials on the floor waved it off. But then
initially,
in the game break,
they?
but then in the game break they went to the teleprompter, to the TV screen, and they got the video evidence, and then realized, he had just, now it was close, but he had just about got it off, and they added 3 points on.
Yeah, but there was no sort of.
It took away the celebration. That was the only thing.
Yeah, and it kind of like, because it went to the game break, and obviously I couldn't. I mean, I don't know what you were getting on yours, but as I mentioned last week,
I'm still getting everything.
I just got that blue screen with game break on, and I was like, well, what's going on? And then, like I say, when it come back and the announcers were talking like it had been wiped off, and I was like, oh, all right, whatever. And then they said something about it about 2 minutes later. I was like, oh, they did give it then. Or I'd seen it on Twitter or whatever it was. I was like, but yeah. Anyway, aside from my game break issues, yeah, what did you make of Ayo?
Yeah, no, I thought Ayo looked good. Like you say, playing with that chip on his shoulder a little bit, like we saw in the first season. And that's what he needs to do. He needs to play that blue collar style. And I mean, he's got his fellow Chicagoan to rub shoulders with now and learn a lot from in Javon Carter, and they both kind of play with that kind of chip and that edge to them, as a lot of Chicago players tend to. Yeah. And I think that's only going to be good for him, and it will help him to develop his game in that way. And hopefully we see more and more of it this year from Ayo, because I liked what I saw.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking then, he was 2 or 4 from 3.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I don't think he's ever had a problem getting it up. With pause.
Lads.
I don't think he's ever had a problem shooting the 3.
Right.
As in shooting it.
Good save. I don't think anybody noticed anything.
Yeah. I'm sure you can edit it out.
I won't.
No. The problem was it was the frequency that he was hitting it, because he could go some games where he was like putting it up 5 times and not hitting it, and you're just thinking, just right, stop now, Ayo. But so I don't think he's ever had a problem with the shooting side of it. It's the accuracy side of it.
Yeah.
And to me, he's clearly been working, and as I said, he's one player through the off-season we've not seen a lot of these workout videos and stuff like that, and I think that's a good thing, because to me it shows he's been focused on and improving himself, and it's year 3 now, and he's somebody who's looking a lot more confident and a bit more outgoing in his personality and stuff, because again, in All Access, where there was at the Tennessee Titans football practice arena, whatever you want to call it, and the guy behind the camera says, oh, if you played football, what position would you be? He went, any, just look at me. It's just, and then just walks off. And that's not something you'd normally see from Ayo, because he's quite reserved and quiet in that sense, and he usually, like when he's been on CHGO and stuff, he's quite nervy behind, talking. That's how he comes across to me anyway. So again, if he's going along the same lines of P. Will and becoming a bit more confident and showing that I've got to make this my year, I have to get, I have to have a breakout of such, then it doesn't become that odd man out anymore, as we've kind of both said, that he kind of seems to be in that 10-man rotation. I don't think he's pushing for a starting role, but going off how he was in that match, if he continues in that sort of vein, then I've got no issue. It'd be one of them players you think, right, get Ayo on, because it'll be a bit of energy for us, a bit of solid defense and hopefully solid offense as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you think that development in the likes of P Will and Io and even Coby, do you think that's coming from this unit beginning to feel a little bit more cohesive, which seems to be the new C buzzword this year? And that whole trip to Nashville and this whole concentration that they're putting on making them feel more like a team and they're more of a unit together. Do you think that's enabling the likes of those more kind of quiet, reserved players to feel more like they have a place in this team and they're allowed to show their personality and become a bit more of an individual within the team?
Possibly. And how you just broke it down, then there's something I said to you last week. I think it was on the first episode last week about Coby becoming a leader.
Mm.
And he's kind of like the leader of that younger core, really, isn't he? Because he's been here the longest.
Right.
So, and if you watch them All Access, the way Coby's talking and stuff like that, he's talking like a vet, basically. Like when they said, "Oh, that's training camp wrapped up," everyone else is coming, "Oh, that's year 12." I think it was Drummond says year 12 training camp done, and Coby comes out and he says, training camp's not over until the first game of the season. There's still more work to be done, and I think obviously we know how close he is with P. Will, and I imagine Ayo's joined in with that little group. So if they're looking at Coby thinking, well, hang on, Coby's doing this now, Coby's bridging that gap, we need to step up and bridge that gap. It's like, that's why I think Coby's probably better on that second unit, because he's a bit of a leader for him, and but yeah, I think obviously Coby, along with Zach, is the longest tenured on this roster, isn't he?
Yep.
And like you said, now he's feeling more confident in the team. Others are looking at him. That they maybe are getting that bit of cohesion now between the vets and this young core that we're so desperate to see progress. And if Coby's leading that and they're following, then it's going to be a dangerous looking young core in it, which is what we wanted to see.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, obviously the other player in that second unit, Drummond. Yeah, we know what we're getting from him. He nearly got a double-double. I think he got 8 points, 9 rebounds in less minutes than what Vooch played as well. I can't remember who was up against. Who was matched up
fairness,
against.
he got one of his own kind of rebound tip-ins at one stage, so that was like
about 5.
a twofer.
Yeah, but we did see that point. I think I put it in the chat as well. This is when you sit Drummond, or this is why Drummond gets sat. And it was because from the inbound, wasn't it? I don't think he inbounded it. I think he got it off the inbound and then went to pass it to Ayo or whoever it was.
Yeah,
and
terrible. Lazy pass.
Yeah, and it didn't get sat after that because it's pre-season. But if that was in the league, he wouldn't play for the next 3 games now.
Yeah.
Going off last season. But that takes us pretty much up to half time, doesn't it, in the game? I don't know if you've got anything else on the starters, the second unit.
No, there's not a whole lot really I mean, apart from the fact that Coby was the top scorer with 14 points. And he had a really good stat line actually in 23 minutes, 14 points, 6 assists and 6 rebounds.
2 steals.
What'd you say? And
2 steals as well.
Yeah, 2 steals.
I think he did 2 turnovers, but
yeah. I just kind of went for his more higher end stats, but yeah, he looked good, really good. I was really impressed.
I mean, he did obviously get the most minutes as well, slightly more than P. Will.
Which
P.
helps.
Will was the second highest scorer with 13.
Yeah, 13 points.
So yeah, it just goes to show what we were saying, in the fact that them two kind of led it because they've got more minutes basically anyway. But you put them into the second unit, you've got two lots of decent scorers there. Then, if they can continue that form anyway. But yeah, like I say, I don't know if you've got anything else on the starters.
Nope.
I'll quickly throw it to the ad read, and we'll talk about the second half when we come back. Here at C-Red UK, we are partnered with USA Sports. USA Sports is a UK and European-based sports merchandise retailer. They cover the NBA, NHL, NFL, MLB, as well as Formula One. From hats to hoodies, there's something for everyone. From Chicago Bulls to Team Red Bull and everywhere in between. So check them out on all the socials and at usasports.co.uk. And for 15% off, enter the code CREDUK at checkout. So, into the second half, we kind of saw quite a bit of IO and stuff like that at the start of it, didn't we? But it's when the more fringe players started coming in, the likes of obviously Dylan Terry, Julian Phillips, Terry Taylor. I think Terry Taylor was the first one to check in, wasn't he? Out of these sort of fringe players. And I think Carlick Jones not long followed him. And maybe Dalen all at the same sort of time coming in. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't get a lot of minutes, the Terry Taylor and Carlick Jones. But the reason why I've highlighted them two to start with is because they're on the roster. The back end of the roster, and there's a bit of are they going to play or are they not going to play, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, for me, Carlick Jones proved that he's not NBA standard. I know it's the first game of pre-season, but when you look at who he was probably matched up with, you're kind of looking at him as if to say, right, go take control of that game. You're the point guard. And in 9 minutes...
He was blocked, 2-3 times?
Yeah. In 9 minutes, no points, no rebounds, no assists, no steals, no blocks. He was none of 4 from the field, none of 1 from 3. And it's pre-season. You're meant to be showing what you can do.
He never looked comfortable on the floor, though.
No, he just looked completely out of place.
Yeah.
And I mean, in terms of Terry Taylor as well, 2 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists in 8.5 minutes. Not bad. But obviously it is a lesser opposition. He didn't look completely comfortable out there either, I didn't think. He rebounds for fun. That's his big thing, considering how small he is compared to who he's going up against.
Mm-hmm.
But off that first game, if that's how they're going to be, I'd have no problems with either of them getting waived, to be fair, if there was a chance to bring in somebody better. Yeah. Obviously, the other players that
they're not written off just yet. It's a bit early, but if that's the performance that continues, I agree.
Yeah, also, not so much with Terry Taylor, but with Carlick Jones, like I say, it was prove it. You've won G League MVP. You've gone to FIBA World Cup and been one of the top players in the early stages.
Yeah.
You come back into a pre-season game where it's like, show what you can do, show that you can play at this level, and you did nothing. Like you say, it's one game, it's pre-season. Nobody talks about that game for South Sudan where he put up 3 points or whatever it was, and
But he bounced back after that game, so maybe he'll do the same.
Yeah, possibly, probably not. But obviously, the main ones who checked in at that point were Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips, and quite contrasting, I think, in terms of performance. And you kind of think these two are going to be battling for them end of rotation minutes.
Yeah.
And Dalen Terry's coming for a lot of stick, hasn't he, after it? And it's hard with Dalen because I like him. I like the potential he's got. But he's more chaotic than Drummond, isn't he?
He definitely plays with a certain level of, shall we say, I don't know, what's the best way to describe it? Erratic play.
Yeah, he's just deer in the headlights sort of thing, and he's just, and as if he's trying too hard. If he
Yeah,
just
you can see
slowed
he
himself,
really wants to be good. And he probably thinks to himself, I have the ability to be really good, but then being able to put it into practice and play at the right pace and see the game, he certainly isn't there where he needs to be. So he gets a bit scrambled, really.
yeah, he just needs to channel that energy, doesn't he? And just,
Mm,
I think, work out what I think he needs to work out what his role's going to be when he checks in.
yeah,
That'll help him massively, and just focus his energy into that. I mean, like you said last year, he only needs a minute and he'll stuff the box score.
mm,
He'll just do a bit of everything. I mean, he got in 11 minutes 2 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. You know, as a plug-in energy guy,
yeah,
he just shows that he's there, he's chasing the ball. But what do you actually want to see from him?
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Do you want to see him putting up 10 points, hitting a couple of threes? Or do you want to see him chase the ball, get a couple of steals, a couple of rebounds? It's
He may need to learn to focus his energy, even if it's just over a certain number of games, like maybe 20 games or whatever, where he just focuses his energy on one particular thing and do that really, really well off the bench,
yeah,
as opposed to trying to be this Swiss Army knife, where he tries to do a little bit of everything, including stand on the sidelines being a cheerleader. I mean, I mean, like I've said so many times, I love the guy. He's hard not to love him. But as an NBA player and a Chicago Bulls player and something that's going to be beneficial to this team, I think he needs to just try and reel it back a little bit and concentrate his energy a little bit.
yeah. And now on the other side of that, Julian Phillips. I didn't think he played particularly bad. He just looked very nervous, and
Yeah, tentative.
yeah, and I think he sort of grew into it a little bit as it sort of went on. I mean, we saw him. Obviously, that dunk that he got for his first bucket off that IO scrambling around, that was good.
Yeah,
His defensive positioning was good. I thought, he knows the angles basically. He knows where players are going to go, where the ball's going to go, and once he's up to NBA sort of speed, I think he's going to sort of match Caruso with that defensive IQ, basically.
yeah.
Get in
There's
there with the
certainly
tips
potential
and
there.
yeah. Obviously, I mean, he got a steal and 2 blocks, which just goes to show how he can be on the defensive end.
Yeah,
On the offensive end, we saw him take 1 3-point attempt and airballed it.
yeah,
But it's weird. It sounds weird to say, but I thought it was a good shot. Apart from the finish, obviously, the action involved and the way you got it up and the calmness that involved in it, I thought
yeah.
was good. It was nice and smooth. It just wasn't very accurate, which
The
kind of
execution was poor.
yeah. But I think that wasn't just nerves more than anything as well. But his willingness to shoot it was there,
Yeah,
and it goes back to what everybody was saying about him in the off season, obviously before summer league, and that was he has got a good shot. He's just got to show it. He's got
right.
to get back to the mechanics of his shots spot on, but he's got to fit his shot into the system basically,
Yeah.
which obviously they didn't do at Tennessee. But no, I think I want to see more of him as pre-season goes on. I
Hmm.
think, as the sort of the lower fringe players lose minutes, I want to see him gain a few minutes and just see how he is with alongside better players and against better players as well.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's pre-season. You've got nothing to lose. Do you know what I mean? Throw him out there, and then as the season starts, and when you send him down to Windy City to learn it a bit better and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I mean, what did you sort of make of his performance?
Yeah, very much the same. I thought that he certainly didn't look totally out of place on the floor. Like like we said about Karlik. Um, he wasn't afraid. Like, I mean, it's always nice for any NBA player to get their first bucket by way of a dunk. I think it helps with confidence. But then when he airballed the three and got the ring around the arena of airball is never nice. So I suppose that put him back in his box fairly quickly. But yeah, no, he needs to see more minutes. I think the preseason is the time for that to happen, and I do expect to see him get more minutes as it goes on a little bit. Not necessarily all in the one game, but spread across all the games of preseason, just to give him a run out and see, does he start to find his feet a little bit and start to feel a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, I don't know about you, but it felt like these players was out there a lot longer than they actually were. I don't know if that's just because of how the game was going, but
Maybe.
they obviously like them two, and then Justin Lewis, Sonogo,
Mm,
Bitim,
mm.
Heidegger, Quentin Jackson, Henry Drell just seemed to be out there. I don't know why. It seemed like they was out there for ages and nothing was happening.
Yeah,
And obviously, we'll quickly cover them sort of players
yeah,
before we finish off. And yeah, I think Bitim and Heidegger were the last ones to sort of check in, weren't they? In it, obviously, we wanted to see Bitim on
yes,
Rolf Bitim, and it just seemed like we weren't going to see him. And it was just like,
yeah,
come on, come on, come on. And obviously, he checks in. He gets just short of 5.5 minutes, and I think he looked a little bit nervous, a little bit. Wow, I'm playing NBA-ish basketball.
yeah.
Um, he looked a little bit lost at times, I thought, but then kind of started growing into it a little bit
I
at
agree.
the defensive end. Anyway, you know, he grabbed a board. I noticed that, but it was the other end where we saw what we wanted to see from him, and it was,
Yep,
well, he had 2 attempts at threes and hit them both, and they were pretty decent threes as well, weren't
they were.
they? Not much defense, to be fair, on him. Be interesting to see what he does when he's got someone like, I don't know, like a Yanis or something rushing out at him. But you know, we've seen what he does do when them and is very Demar type, where it's like, how the hell did you get that up?
Hmm.
But no, again, Bitim somebody I want to see more of, and I'm hoping that them 2 3 pointers have shown Billy what he can do, and it's like, right,
Yep.
you're going to be one of the first ones to check in at the end or in the second half now, rather than one of the last.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, before we move on to the rest, I know you've been excited to watch him as well. So
I have been, and I was suitably impressed, to be fair. I mean, they've been banging on about needing 3-point shooting. He hit 2 of 2. He looked comfortable shooting them. He looked like he wanted to shoot them as well. Like, it was almost like, oh yeah, now this is my range. I'll put this up. Like you say, when he first came in, he did seem a little bit misplaced, um, but certainly warmed into the game in the few minutes that he had. I still stand by my projection for him. I think he is gonna grow into this team and be someone to watch.
yeah, obviously the other one we was really excited about was Justin Lewis, and obviously it's the first chance we got to see him in a
Hmm.
in a proper Bulls uniform, and I can't actually remember seeing him. To be fair, I mean, he got 2 points. I can't remember
Yeah,
where they were from or what he did to get them. But
he took one 3-pointer and missed it, and he made one field goal out of, wow, 1 out of 3, including the 3-point shot. So 1 for 2, 50% from the field, I guess, outside of the 3-point line.
yeah, like I say, just did nothing of note for me, and
No.
hopefully we do see him get a bit more to see what he can do. But I think, to be honest, it's a year with Windy City to really develop.
Yeah.
The sort of last of the two ways, Sonogo.
Yeah.
4 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal. I like it.
Me too.
I still don't think he's quite NBA ready, but you put him in that paint, you're not getting the ball.
Yeah.
And for somebody, he's just solid. You're not moving him. You're
He's
not.
a machine.
Yeah. And if that's where you're going to play him, just in the paint, fantastic.
Yeah.
Because he will fight for that ball and he will fight for the rebound. And, if we're throwing up threes, this is a perfect one to have in there to try and grab the boards, isn't he?
Yeah. Once he knows what to do with it, once he catches it.
Yeah. And if he is going to be our third option in the middle, possibly step up if Vooch or Dre go down. Needs some work, but I don't think I'd have a problem with him being thrown out there to see if it works, to be fair.
Well, look, if he gets more minutes than Marco, it's a step up, right?
And then obviously Henry Drell, he's going to be down with Windy City.
Yeah.
Didn't do a lot.
No.
Heidegger, he got 1 point, which was off a technical free throw.
I found Heidegger just ran around like a bit of a headless chicken, to be honest.
Yeah, I just noticed another white guy out there running around, to be honest, and that was it. And then the last one, Quentin Jackson.
Right. Go on. I'll give him 1 bonus point, and that's about it. And that was because that stuff was just dirty.
Yeah, I looked into him a little bit after obviously we brought him in, and I knew he was going to be a fun player to watch in terms of how aggressive he is to the rim and the highlight sort of dunks and stuff like that. And he didn't disappoint, as you just said. And I did mention at one point, give me Jackson over Carlick Jones on the end of the roster because of that performance. I'd rather watch him. He was a bit like a headless chicken as well, but he was kind of getting somewhere as a headless chicken until the last play of the game. And it was like, right, we need a 3 to tie it. So he runs down and then kicks it into the middle to Sonogo's feet, which doesn't help when he's 6 foot, whatever he is.
It's a long way down for him to get it.
But you had Bittim stood the other side of him, wide open, who's just hit 2 threes, feeling himself, and it's like, no, go that way. It's like, and look, I get it. He's trying to prove something. He's trying to get that spot, and he just, I don't know. It just reminded me a bit of Zach with that sort of lack of clutch IQ. Basically, it was just like, I'm just going to run and hope and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think he'd missed one a little bit earlier, hadn't he? Where he sort of went to the rim and tried to lay it up and what have you. But if he's down at Windy City, I think he'll do brilliant down there. Don't think he's going to be anywhere near the Bulls roster, but for pre-season, end of garbage time, I think it'll be quite fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Just needs to stop going for the highlight play and think about what he's doing. So yeah, couple of pause moments in that little chat. I've had a long day. It's a late recording. Yeah, I don't know if you've got anything else on that game.
No, I really don't. But I enjoyed being able to watch Bulls basketball being back. Okay, so we didn't get the end result that we would have liked, maybe, but it's pre-season. The scores don't really matter that much. What matters is what we get to see, the development of the players, how they're getting on, the chemistry of the team, and this cohesion that we've all been told to look out for. So it was great to have it back. It was great to be able to have a game at a time. And even though I was a bit out of it, as I tend to be on the earlier tips with my family, I wasn't as involved as I normally am in the group, but it was great to see the group was active because the match a little bit earlier. But I think the thing I do want to say is that there's been an awful lot on the socials about, and you mentioned it at the start of, the Bulls couldn't even beat this half decent Bucks team with their three best players not playing, one of which is injured, by the way. And that they can't even beat them. The point that I'm going to make to that is, for the first quarter, when we had our full strength team out there, we were hammering them by 10 points. Not only were we winning by 10 points, we looked like we were comfortably in control of the game. It only started to unravel a little bit when Billy started to test the water with our second and tertiary team. And, at that stage, you're not playing the second-hand Bucks team with the first-hand Bulls team anymore. You're playing like for like. So it's understandable that we lost the game. I'm not worried about the fact that we lost the game. We looked good when we had our full-strength team out there. Now, I know it's going to be different when they've got Giannis and Dame playing, but we'll cross that bridge as and when we have to. For me, when we had the full strength team out there, we looked good. When we had the second team out there was a lot of positives to take out of it. And when we had the fringe players playing, it was scrappy and messy, but there was still some little highlights and some little positives to take out that too. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Step down off my soapbox.
And that's exactly what pre-season's all about, isn't it?
Exactly.
And as you said, 6 p.m. tip. We're back to the 1 a.m. tips for the next one against Denver. It's obviously Thursday night in Chicago, 1 a.m. for us Friday. As you mentioned, I think we both kind of prefer them. We don't particularly like being up at that time, but Sunday I had my daughter screaming about princesses to her brother, who was trying to talk to me about football, which I've got no interest in, or soccer. I've got no interest in whatsoever. So I was trying to watch the game, be involved on the thread, do Twitter, and I had my daughter screaming about princesses to my son, who was talking about soccer. And it was just like, I'm not enjoying this. But, I managed to watch it, and let's say Bulls are back.
Yep.
Obviously, let's say we go against Nuggets. Don't really know what to expect. It's pre-season. Just seen before we come on that is it Michael Malone, the coach in Nuggets?
Yeah.
His dad's just unfortunately passed away.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, so I don't know how that's going to affect him, whether he's going to be at the game, because obviously we've got him with 2 games against him, aren't we, coming up?
Yeah.
Thursday and Sunday. So again, it's pre-season.
Yeah.
Whether he's there or not, you know what you're going to get from Nuggets, as long as like Jokic is playing. He's probably going to get. I don't think they've actually had a pre-season game yet, have they? I haven't looked at their schedule properly, but I haven't seen them. I'd imagine the 2 completely different games, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
As they start ramping up, we've ramped up a little bit more and stuff like that. So again, not bothered interested there. What was I to say? Not interested in the results, interested in the performances and seeing what happens in the games, and I guess the rotations and the roles of the players as well. That's what I'm looking at, and so not quite sure when we're going to be back yet.
No.
Let's say probably next week now, innit, after the 2 games. But I've got nothing else. I don't know if you have.
Nope, nothing else to add.
So yeah, thanks everybody for listening. And like I say, if you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the bell, thumbs up, comments, all the good stuff. And as usual, I've been Matt. You can find me on Twitter at MattCRedUK, and you can find us on all the socials at CRedUK.
And you can find me on Twixter at Neill UK. On behalf of both Matt and myself and the Fans First Sports Network, thanks once again to everyone for tuning in, whether you're watching or listening. Please do subscribe, rate, and review, and give us a thumbs up on YouTube. It helps us to keep providing you with all the content. From us both, do remember it's a Chicago Bulls thing wherever in the world you are supporting this amazing team. And until next time, see red people and go Bulls.
Percolator. It's time for the percolator. Percolator.